Come on in. You see those 4 seats? Hey, this is going to be fine. We're just going to have fun and talk. You're totally fine. Go grab one of those seats. Here's what I'm doing, and you guys have been a part of the church long enough, you'll understand this. I'm trying to gather stories, as many stories as possible. You guys have been here literally longer than I have. You have stories and memories and experiences, but I want you in the context, simple questions like, what are some of your fondest memories over the past 7 years or so?
I would say overall, I don't know if it's a memory, but just what we've seen as what Fountain Springs has done for this community.
Yeah.
I mean, we've gone from, I really think, a big void in the community for a church that needs to fill that void, to something that, I mean, you start Love Rapid City Week, taking donuts to the police officers and the firefighters. I remember we did that on Christmas Eve one year.
Yeah.
So it's been remarkable what Fountain Springs has done in this community.
The transformation of children's ministry,
Yeah.
I think, has been a huge, memory. The other day at church here, I was thinking about where the nursery was when we first came. I was just thinking about taking our youngest ones to the nursery, and now taking Axel to the nursery. Totally different, and just thinking, oh my word, it was right there. And then we were back there, because I was thinking as I was sitting here how on the other side was when this changed, and then we had kids right back there for a while. And then in the trailers. And just the drastic difference for our kids, and how ministry has just been, the children's ministry is transformed, and I think it definitely then transforms a church.
Yeah.
I remember the Christmas, and I can't remember which one it was. I think it was the first one after you got here, though, where the seats ran out in the auditorium and there were people sitting up on the altar.
No, I remember that. Box seats.
Yes, exactly. And I thought that was quite interesting.
All of us had the big eyes going. It wasn't I don't know that was normal then. So we were like, what's going on? What are we gonna do? I remember that. Yeah. You guys remember the first Easter at the Civic Center? I'm curious, what was your expectations? Be honest. Be completely honest.
A lot of empty seats.
Yeah, I have no idea what to expect, but I didn't think it would be
Serving the
nearly
same
what it
church.
was.
Yeah. Serving the same church that came here. The people that came here just go there,
Just go to a different building.
maybe a few extra people.
And then 3,000 people filled up.
I remember calling my grandma, I think, in between the two services on the first one, holding my phone up. Do you hear that? I mean, that's 2,000 people or whatever the number was. Yeah, that was cool.
When I'm just going to say a phrase that you'll remember. When I say, build up, reach out. Do you remember that?
Oh, we do.
So it was a stage of life for us as a church that, we'd had enough of the Christmases where we're putting seats on the stage. We had enough of where we're turning kids away because we literally can't fit them in rooms. And one of the main reasons I want you guys and me, for us to talk about this, is you guys played a significant role in that. What I know is that both of you's families financially sacrificed to make sure that we got more seats. So I have a personal question. So I know that both of you were very, very involved as couples. Why? Very simple, but why did you guys financially, I don't know if you had to change your way of living. I don't know how you adjusted stuff or did anything, But why did you financially give? Why did you stick through that? Because when a church builds, that's crazy, especially the first time. I'm curious to know what build up, reach out, all that. Why'd you did it? Why you did it? Why you're part of it?
God tells us to live by faith, and then He put in front of our eyes all the stuff going on, all the people coming and starting to grow, and it's like, and then being part of the church before had 125 people, and we were there for about 2 or 3 years at that number, and it's like, wow, we want to be involved with what's going on in this church. I mean, we were just, I mean, it was passionate what God was doing. And it was like a miracle happened right in front of our eyes, and watching people come to Christ, baptisms, all that stuff going on. And they said, why wouldn't we put our money in that area? I mean, God calls us to be fruitful to the church, and we just wanted to partake in that because we felt God was leading us in that way. A lot of prayer and thought, and a lot of nights we're going, can we afford this? But now look what's happening now, and it's like, we're so glad that we did it. So
It's funny you bring up the people that don't know Jesus and the people that have come to know who Jesus is. Your intentionality, your sacrifice, literally opened up moments for people. You don't know them. You know some of them, but you don't know them all. But your I would say aggressiveness on saying, what does God want us to do? We will do that, not knowing how that plays out, and I can't imagine what you guys gave up in order to make that occur. But because of what you did, it's much bigger than what I think all of us dreamt of. When we did Build Up, Reach Out, we were raising money to build this building bigger so that we could reach people in this building. However, as we have this conversation, there are people at a prison that are hearing about who Jesus is because of what we were able to do here. There's going to be an East Campus. So I know our minds, and all of us were collectively like, let's build this building and try to get people to this building. But what we didn't know what God was doing, He's like, I have a far greater thing planned for you in the future. And so I wanted to thank you. Honestly, there's nothing behind that. I wanted to say thank you for investing in people's lives, people you don't know and maybe never will meet, but they know who Jesus is. But I can tell you thank you. We can talk that all day long. I don't know that that's adequate. So I wanted you to hear from some other Fountain Springers and have them tell you thank you. Probably folks you may not know, you might know, but I want you to hear from them the power of learning who Jesus is.
My name is Christy Halverson. I had started coming here back actually in about 2001, 2002. I got pregnant with my youngest daughter, and she was born in August of 2002. My attendance here gradually declined, and by early 2003, I wasn't attending church at all. I began living a very selfish, self-centered life, and between that and a number of other things in my marriage, I ended up divorced in August of 2010. About November of 2012, my youngest daughter and I started seeing commercials for church. She'd say, "Oh, Mom, we should go there." "Nope, I'm sleeping in on Sunday. I'm not getting up." We walked in the doors on January 27th, 2013. The video that was showing that day was the Butterfly Circus. And I realized at that moment that I had been letting others create my identity. And I would become whoever for whomever. I was hooked from day one. We started coming back every weekend. March 10th, 2013, I surrendered my life to Christ. I was baptized on October 27th of 2013. But it's not just me that this has affected. My youngest daughter came to youth group and called me. I don't want to be here, come pick me up, I don't know anybody. And one of the youth group leaders connected with her. She was saved in youth group, and she was baptized with me. And then there's my oldest daughter, who, if you had met her a year ago, you'd never believe she's the same person she is today. She surrendered her life to Christ at Easter in 2014 and was baptized in March of this year. So thank you. You know, life has thrown so many circumstances over. Without this church, I know would have just completely consumed my identity. So because of you and because of your commitment, you have changed my entire family. Thank you.
Before we started coming to Fountain Springs, Amanda and I were fighting a lot about our kids, marriage, financing, and Fountain Springs really changed a lot of stuff for us. Prior to coming here, we were talking about getting a divorce. We'd even set a date and everything, and had things not changed, we would have got a divorce. One Sunday we decided to come, and we've been here ever since.
I think we were having so much anger because we're already a split family home, so we know how much damage a divorce can do. So when we decided to come, it was just kind of our last straw. We didn't know what else to do. And when we came that Sunday, Pastor David's message was just amazing. And it really did speak to, I think, both of us. And I was a non-believer before coming here, so that was just a huge step anyhow. And then when we came, we kind of walked out of service thinking that, well, we didn't want to admit that we liked it. So we actually told each other, well, we have to see what the kids think. So we went downstairs to pick them up, and they came out screaming and yelling, and we're so excited. And they asked if they could come back. And so we did. And we want to thank you guys for investing in this church, because you saved our marriage, this church, and the community. So we're very grateful.
Hi, I'm Jen Buell, and I have been coming to Fountain Springs since December of 2013, 3 months after my husband died. My husband was a pastor at another church in town, a very good church, but it was just too hard for my 4 kids and I to stay there with all the reminders of Dad. And I had some friends that were Fountain Springers that were telling me what amazing children's ministry there was. And they were sure the youth ministry was good, although none of their kids were that old yet. And I have 3 youth group age and 1 children's ministry age, and so we came. And I have never heard a senior pastor speak with such conviction about the importance of ministry to teens. I have a son with autism who was welcomed into the youth group with open arms. As confident as I am and as used to church as I am, it is a humbling experience to have to go in with a special needs child and try to explain them and hope that they'll work with him and he won't be a burden. And the youth group embraced him, and the leaders were like, "It's okay, Mom, we got it. We will include him. He's fine," and he loves coming to youth group. My youngest daughter, after being here for 4 months, got into the car after school one day and informed me that she had started a church at recess. She'd been inspired by Pastor Michael and had hired staff. They'd all had assignments. She was leading worship. but I have to say the moment at which I knew this was my church was sitting in a sermon. We'd been here about a month. Pastor David was preaching, and my oldest son got a nosebleed. He's 15 years old at the time. He gets nosebleeds all the time. So I'm scrambling in my purse, and I'm handing him tissues, and I lean over and whisper, "You can go ahead and go to the bathroom until it stops." And he looks at me and says, "I'm not going anywhere. I want to hear how this ends." And all I could think of was how many 15-year-olds beg to get out of church, take forever to go get that drink and look for any excuse. And my son is sitting here with bloody tissue hanging out of his nose because he wants to hear where Pastor David's going with this. That was the moment at which I decided this truly was a place where my children were going to discover who Jesus was. We've plugged in with Love Week. I volunteer with kids ministry, and my son helps on the storytelling team, and we found a good church home here. And I know you're probably thinking you're not the only ones that invested in this, but you are representative of so many people that gave sacrificially. So to you and to all of them, thank you. The fruits of what you've given are standing right here in all these stories. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Tristan Love. I'm 17 years old, and I'm going to be a senior at Stevens High School this year. I started coming to Fountain Springs Church in October of 2014, so only for about 10 months. And I was actually invited to youth group on a Wednesday night by one of my friends, and just on an impulse, I decided to go. And when I went, I had a ton of fun. It was really enjoyable. The games were amazing, and the messages were awesome. And then there was one night where the sermon was about the feeling of being alone, and that just hit me like a brick wall. And ever since that night, I've been following Christ in my life. And before I started coming to this church, I had a lot of bad influences in my life, and I made some poor choices. So this church has really turned my life around. And I've met a ton of amazing people here, and I've gotten so many opportunities through this church. And now I'm doing all kinds of things. I help with youth group on Wednesday nights whenever I can, and I volunteer on Sundays. I help park in the mornings, and I also help take care of preschoolers as well.
Thank you. That's great. Thanks for letting us know.
I just want to thank you guys, because without you guys, I would have never had an opportunity to change my life. And people like me never would have either. So, thank you guys.
You are two families of approximately 100 that in 2010 said, "We don't know what the future holds, we just know that there are people who don't know who Jesus is." And none of us could ever claim to have known what God was going to do. All of us have been blown away. Every single time we gather, every weekend we have new people. Every single weekend, new people. You got to hear stories from people who have never been to church before. And I can't imagine if you hadn't sacrificed. Our mission, is to show people who Jesus is. That can't happen if you and I don't sacrifice. So I just wanted you to know that we are all very grateful. Very, very, very grateful. I think our best days are even ahead. I think the dreams that we dream are not near big enough in what God's got in store. So we love you. Thank you for sacrificing. Thanks for stepping up. And my prayer is that all of us as a church step up and think about and consider what other folks who might get to know who Jesus is, the other prisoners that we can reach, the teenagers, the kids, the marriages that might get restored. You're talking about amazing things, all for the glory of God.